Alright, the topic I will be discussing is how speakers are made. Here is a just kind of cross section of a speaker showing all the components I'll be covering. And mainly I chose this topic just because I really didn't know that much about speakers and I really find them interesting. Just a quick overview of speakers. The basic design of speakers has remained the same for many decades. It's pretty much used the same components for the past however long speakers have been around. The main component in the base of the speaker is really the frame and permanent magnet. The frame is usually made from stamped iron or aluminum, and the permanent magnet rests inside of the frame on the bottom. It's usually made of a ceramic ferrite material consisting of iron oxide, strontium, and a ceramic binder. The cone is the part of the speaker you've probably seen the most. It's on the outside. It's the face of speakers and it pushes air. Speakers also have a surround, which is usually the paper or rubber material around the cone. And there's also a spider, which you probably haven't seen. It is underneath the cone. And all of these are usually made of treated paper with an adhesive glue. The voice coil is another integral component of the speaker, which is made of a plastic bobbin with fine thread insulated copper wire wound around it. Here's just an animation of a speaker moving with all the components. It's kind of interesting to see how everything moves. You'll also note that the basket, permanent magnet, and some of the plate pieces are the only ones stationary, while the rest of the components, which is the cone, surround, spider, voice coil, and all that other stuff, is moving to produce sound. As far as speakers go, you can kind of break it down to three main groups. There are subwoofers, which are large diameter and produce low frequencies, mid-range, which are medium-sized in diameter and, as their name implies, produce mid-range frequencies, and there are also tweeters, which are small diameter and produce high frequencies. For the duration of this video, I'll mostly be covering how subwoofers are made since they're of a larger scale and therefore easier to see be produced. One of the base components of any speaker is, of course, the permanent magnet. This permanent magnet is constructed by mixing iron oxide with strontium and then milling the compound into a very fine powder. This powder is then mixed with a ceramic binder and then closed in a metal die. The die is then placed in a furnace and the mixture is bonded. Next, one of the more base pieces of the speaker is, of course, its frame or basket. The frame is typically constructed from aluminum or sheet steel. A hydraulic press is used to cut holes in the sheet to allow free air movement from the cone. The sheet is then formed by a hydraulic press that forces the sheet into a die of the desired shape. Once it's been formed, mounting holes are then drilled in their proper locations. The cone and surround. These are the components of a speaker you're probably most familiar with. The cone, surround, and spider are individually formed and then glued together as an assembly. Cones are typically made of paper, plastic, or metal as previously mentioned, and surrounds are typically made from foam or rubber. You'll notice in the picture they are the topmost components. Underneath that is the spider, and the guy is holding what is the voice coil. Now I'll go into more depth on the voice coil. Basically, it's just a bunch of really thin copper wires wound together on a plastic bobbin. They're adhered with some adhesive to remain tight with each other, and they act as an electromagnet. Basically, once all these components I've mentioned previously are complete, the speaker is ready for assembly. In this portion, they are mounting the frame to the permanent magnet. You're noticing they're using shims to provide adequate spacing for the voice coil. Once this is assembled, they place it in a magnetizing machine which uses 600 volts of direct current, creating positive and negative poles on the permanent magnet, which allows the speaker to work. Now we get into the final assembly. This is when the cone assembly is attached to the frame, first by manually gluing the spider to the base of the frame, and then by gluing the surround to the top of the frame. Once everything's been secured, the speaker is ready for testing. during most speaker tests, they usually play a sine wave ranging from like 40 to 300 hertz. This just tests the movement of the speaker, make sure everything moves smoothly and the speaker performs adequately. And these are my sources. Thanks for listening.